Have you felt it? That restless stirring in your bones that won't let you sleep? That inexplicable heaviness pressing against your chest, whispering that something monumental is about to shift in your life? What if I told you that the spiritual exhaustion you've been carrying isn't weakness, it's the sound of heaven breaking through? Stop everything, right now. This isn't another motivational message you stumbled across by accident. This is a divine interruption, a sacred alarm clock that heaven has set specifically for this moment in your life. The very fact that these words are reaching your ears tonight isn't coincidence. It's confirmation that you are standing at the edge of the most significant spiritual reset of your lifetime. For too long, you've been walking around with burdens that weren't yours to carry, questions that gnawed at your faith, delays that made you wonder if God had forgotten your name. But what if everything they told you about waiting was preparation? What if every closed door, every betrayal, every night you cried yourself to sleep was heaven's way of positioning you for this exact moment? There's something the enemy doesn't want you to discover tonight, a hidden truth about your spiritual DNA that's been buried under years of disappointment and doubt. You see, chosen ones don't just get tired, they get recalibrated. And right now, as you listen to these words, the realm of the Spirit is shifting around you like tectonic plates before an earthquake. You've been marked since birth with a frequency that darkness recognizes and heaven protects. That's why the attacks on your peace have been so relentless. That's why ordinary solutions never quite fit your extraordinary problems. You're not broken, beloved, you're being upgraded. Tonight, heaven is pressing the reset button on your spiritual operating system. The old programming, the fear, the doubt, the patterns that kept you small, it's all being wiped clean. But here's the warning. If you resist this process, if you cling to the familiar pain instead of embracing the uncomfortable glory, you could miss the window that won't open again for years. The energy coursing through your spirit right now isn't anxiety, it's anticipation. Heaven is downloading new instructions, new authority, new dimensions of power that will make your enemies unrecognizable to you and you unrecognizable to them. Thank you to every single one of you who has supported this message through super thanks. Your generosity means more than you know. You're not just giving, you're helping spread light to others who feel alone in their calling. Whether you give or not, I'm deeply grateful for your presence here, your support, your time, your attention. It all matters. And if this message resonates with your soul, go ahead and plant that seed of faith. This reset begins now. Don't you dare scroll away. Your breakthrough is encoded in the next words you're about to hear. Have you been lying awake at 3 a.m., staring at the ceiling, wondering why your soul feels like it's carrying the weight of 1,000 storms? Have you noticed that no amount of rest can touch that bone-deep exhaustion that's been following you like a shadow for weeks, maybe months? What if I told you that what you're feeling isn't depression, isn't anxiety, isn't even spiritual warfare in the way you've understood it, but something far more profound? Listen to me carefully, chosen one. Your spirit is not broken. Your faith is not failing. You are not losing your mind. What you're experiencing right now is heaven hitting the emergency brake on your life because you've been carrying assignments that expired years ago, shouldering burdens that were never yours to bear, and walking in cycles that God Himself is now interrupting. That restlessness gnawing at your insides, that's not your enemy, that's your deliverer. That inability to find peace in places that used to comfort you, that's not a curse. That's God disturbing your false sense of security because He's about to shift everything. You see, your soul has become a battlefield where the old you and the emerging you are wrestling for dominion. And tonight, this very moment, heaven has called a divine timeout. The realm of the Spirit has pressed pause because what's about to be birthed in you cannot coexist with what's been dying in you. For months, maybe years, you've been feeling spiritually displaced, like you don't quite fit anywhere anymore. The church services that used to stir you now feel hollow. The relationships that once energized you now drain you. The routines that brought stability now feel like spiritual quicksand. And you've been asking God, what's wrong with me? Nothing is wrong with you, beloved. Everything is right on schedule. What you're experiencing is what happens when heaven begins to extract you from a dimension that can no longer contain your calling. You're being pulled out of the familiar, the predictable, the spiritually mediocre, because the assignment waiting for you requires a completely different frequency. The prophet Isaiah spoke these words that pierced through the confusion. Forget the former things. Do not dwell on the past. See, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs up. Do you not perceive it? The reason you can't perceive it clearly yet is because you're standing in the space between the old dying and the new being born. And that space, dear one, is sacred territory. But here's what the enemy doesn't want you to understand. This divine pause isn't punishment, it's preparation. God has literally stopped time in your spiritual realm to rewire your internal operating system. The thoughts that used to satisfy you spiritually now feel empty because your capacity for divine encounter has expanded. The prayers that used to flow easily now feel labored because heaven is teaching you a new language of intercession. You think this is spiritual dryness? This is divine excavation. God is digging up the shallow roots of who you used to be to plant the deep foundations of who you're becoming. That exhaustion you feel, it's not from doing too much. It's from fighting against the very transformation God is performing in you. Every sleepless night has been heaven's way of separating you from the noise of the day so he could speak to you in the sacred silence. Every moment of feeling disconnected from others has been God creating space for a deeper connection with him. The racing thoughts, the spiritual restlessness, the sense that you're on the verge of something monumental but can't quite grasp what these aren't symptoms of breakdown. They're evidence of breakthrough. You see, chosen ones don't just get tired, they get recalibrated. And recalibration always feels uncomfortable because it's the process of your spirit being stretched to accommodate more glory, more authority, more divine purpose than you've ever carried before. Heaven is shutting doors you didn't even know were still open. Relationships that served their season are being quietly closed. Opportunities that would have distracted you from destiny are being divinely blocked. Habits that once brought comfort are now becoming sources of conviction because your spirit is allergic to anything that isn't aligned with the new dimension you're entering. This is not coincidence. This is choreography. Divine choreography orchestrated by a God who loves you too much to leave you where you are when he's already prepared where you're going. Right now, as you hear these words, something ancient is stirring in your bones. Can you feel it? That trembling in your spirit that says, yes, this is my story. Yes, this is my moment. Yes, God is moving in my life in ways I don't fully understand, but my soul recognizes. The fatigue you've been carrying is about to lift, not because your circumstances will suddenly become easier, but because you're about to step into supernatural strength that comes from divine alignment. The confusion that's been clouding your vision is about to clear because heaven is about to download clarity that cuts through every lie the enemy has whispered about your future. You think this is stress? Heaven is preparing to shift you into a realm where your very presence disrupts the assignments of hell. Type 999 in the comments if you feel a tooth sense that something unseen is shifting tonight, that this word isn't just reaching your ears but penetrating the deepest places of your spirit, where God himself is saying, my child, your waiting is over, your recalibration is complete, your reset begins now. Can you feel it happening? That slow-motion spiritual earthquake that's been shaking everything you once called solid? Why does your morning coffee taste different when you're praying the same prayers? Why do the people who used to energize you now drain your very soul? Listen to me. Chosen one. What you're experiencing isn't depression. It's not age. It's not even spiritual warfare in the way you've been taught to understand it. This is God himself performing divine surgery on your spiritual operating system. And just like any major surgery, there's going to be pain before there's healing. You see, you've been trying to run heavenly software on a corrupted earthly operating system, and tonight, heaven is forcing a complete shutdown. Think about this. When was the last time you sat in your usual church pew and felt truly fed? When did you last have a conversation with that old friend that left you feeling energized instead of empty? When did your daily routine last give you life instead of slowly killing your spirit? The silence is deafening, isn't it? Here's what's really happening. God is systematically closing off old spiritual portals in your life. Those relationships that used to feel so natural, they're feeling forced now because the anointing has lifted. Those places that once brought you comfort, they feel hollow because the glory has departed. Those habits that once sustained you, they're no longer nourishing because your spirit has outgrown spiritual baby food. You're not losing your mind. You're losing your tolerance for anything that doesn't carry the authentic presence of God. In Amos 8:11, the prophet declares, "Behold, the days are coming when I will send a famine on the land, not a famine of bread, nor a thirst for water, but of hearing the words of the Lord." But chosen one, this famine isn't punishment, it's preparation. God is creating a holy hunger in you that can only be satisfied by His genuine presence. You've been wondering why nothing fits anymore, why your old coping mechanisms feel like wearing clothes 3 sizes too small, why the entertainment that used to distract you now irritates your spirit, why the conversations that used to engage you now feel like spiritual static. It's because you're not the same person you were 6 months ago. You've been secretly upgraded in the night seasons. While you slept, while you wept, while you waited in that spiritual wilderness, heaven was rewiring your spiritual circuitry. Your discernment has been sharpened to a razor's edge. Your hunger for authenticity has been supernaturally intensified. You're not lazy because you can't force yourself to care about things that once mattered. You're outgrowing spiritual starvation. Your soul is rejecting counterfeit nourishment because it's tasted something real. Look at your daily routine right now. Really look at it. That morning scroll through social media that leaves you feeling agitated. Those lunch conversations filled with gossip that make your spirit recoil. Those evening shows that numb your mind instead of renewing it. Your spirit is sending you signals that this isn't working anymore because you weren't created for spiritual junk food. The frustration you feel isn't coming from the outside world. It's coming from the holy tension between who you're becoming and who you used to be. Your inner man is at war with your outer routine. Your spirit is declaring independence from anything that doesn't align with your true calling. This is why you feel like you're living someone else's life, because in many ways, you are. You're still operating from the muscle memory of the old you while the new you is trying to break free. It's like trying to squeeze an eagle into a canary cage. Something's got to give. God is not just changing your preferences. He's changing your spiritual appetite. What used to satisfy now starves you. What used to excite now exhausts you. What used to comfort now convicts you. This isn't coincidence. This is consecration. You know that friend who keeps calling with the same tired drama? The one whose problems never change because they don't really want solutions? Your spirit cringes now when you see their name on your phone because you can sense the spiritual drain before you even answer. That's not you becoming judgmental. That's discernment protecting your anointing. You know that church service where everyone goes through the motions but nobody encounters God? Where the music is loud but the presence is absent? Your spirit can't settle there anymore because it's tasted what real worship feels like. You're not being difficult, you're being discerning. The old you could tolerate spiritual mediocrity because you didn't know better. The new you can't stomach it because you've seen better. God has ruined you for anything less than His authentic presence. In 2 Corinthians 5:17, Paul reminds us, "Therefore, if anyone is in Christ, the new creation has come, the old has gone, the new is here." But here's what most people miss about this verse. The old doesn't just disappear quietly, it gets pushed out violently. And that pushing feels like everything in your life is breaking at once. Your spirit is evolving, but your circumstances haven't caught up yet. You're carrying new wine in old wineskins, and Jesus warned us what happens next. The wineskins burst. The containers can't hold what God is pouring into you. This is why your old life doesn't work anymore. It was designed for the person you used to be, not the warrior you're becoming. It was built for survival mode, not dominion mode. It was constructed for spiritual infancy, not spiritual maturity. But here's the beautiful truth that hell doesn't want you to understand. This breakdown is actually a breakthrough in disguise. Every old system that's shutting down is making room for something infinitely better. Every relationship that's dissolving is creating space for divine connections. Every routine that's failing is being replaced by heaven's rhythm. You're not falling apart, you're falling into alignment. The question is, will you resist this divine disruption, or will you surrender to the upgrade? Comment, it doesn't fit anymore if this word is pulling back your veil tonight, because what you're about to discover in the next chapter will shatter every remaining illusion about who you thought you were supposed to be. Have you ever walked into a room full of people and felt like you were speaking a different language? Have you ever sat at your own family table and wondered why their laughter never quite reached your soul? What if I told you that the loneliness you've carried like a stone in your chest isn't a punishment, it's a prophecy? Chosen one, listen carefully. The ache you feel when others celebrate things that leave you empty. That's not depression. That's discernment. The way conversations die when you enter the room, the way people shift uncomfortably when you speak truth, that's not rejection, that's recognition. Something in their spirit recognizes something in yours that they can't name, can't tame, and frankly, can't handle. You see, you were never built to blend. You were engineered to burn. From the moment you could understand words, you sensed it. You were different. Not broken, not flawed different. While other children played pretend, you saw through the facade. While others chased applause, you craved authenticity. And yes, it hurt. Dear God, how it hurt to be the only one in the room who couldn't laugh at the joke because you saw the pain behind the punchline. But here's what the enemy never wanted you to understand. Your inability to blend wasn't a defect, it was by design. Scripture tells us in 1 Peter 2-9, you are a chosen people, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, God's special possession. Special possession, not mass-produced, not assembly line spirituality, handcrafted by the Almighty for purposes that require spiritual sensitivity others simply don't possess. You've spent years wondering what was wrong with you. Why couldn't you just enjoy the shallow praise? Why did gossip make your spirit recoil like it was touching hot coals? Why did compromise feel like swallowing glass? Because you're a spiritual instrument, beloved, and instruments are tuned differently than background noise. Think about it. A violin can't sound like a drum, a trumpet can't pretend to be a whisper, and you can't fake resonance with frequencies that were never meant to match your calling. That spiritual allergy, you have to sin, to smallness, to surface-level living, that's not your weakness, that's your wiring. I know the nights you've cried, asking God why He made you so sensitive, why every conversation feels like you're translating between worlds, why you can feel the weight of people's unspoken pain while they're smiling at you. But chosen one, what if your sensitivity isn't a burden? What if it's your badge? The same spirit that makes you uncomfortable in ungodly environments is the same spirit that will make demons uncomfortable in your presence. The same discernment that isolates you from counterfeit connections will position you for covenant relationships. The same fire that burns away shallow friendships will attract souls desperate for the real thing. You were never meant to be everyone's cup of tea. You were meant to be someone's living water, and that's why you've always been misunderstood. But it's not rejection, it's recognition. The world needs its background music, its easy listening, its comfortable static. But God needed a voice that would cut through the noise, a presence that would disturb the peace of the spiritually asleep, a light so bright it would make people choose between running toward it or running away. You are not an accident wandering through life wondering why you don't fit. You are an answer to prayers you've never heard, prayers cried by people trapped in spiritual darkness, begging God to send someone real, someone who won't perform, won't pretend, won't polish their testimony until it's unrecognizable. Isaiah 61:3 declares that God has given you a crown of beauty instead of ashes, the oil of joy instead of mourning, and a garment of praise instead of a spirit of despair. But notice it doesn't say, He gave you a crowd. It says He gave you a crown. Crowns are worn by individuals. Crowns are heavy. Crowns separate you from the masses because crowns carry authority that cannot be shared, delegated, or democratized. Every time you felt like the odd one out, you were being positioned as the chosen one in. Every moment of isolation was heaven's way of saying, I need to speak to you privately before I send you publicly. Your loneliness wasn't abandonment, it was appointment scheduling. Think about every prophet, every reformer, every voice that changed the course of history. Moses spent 40 years in the wilderness before he led a nation out of bondage. David was anointed king while his brothers were ignored, and he spent years in caves before he occupied a throne. Jesus himself was misunderstood by his own family, rejected by his hometown, betrayed by his closest friends. But their separation wasn't punishment, it was preparation. And your separation, it's been your sacred preparation too. You see, God doesn't mass-produce His messengers. He hand-selects them, He isolates them. He puts them through experiences that stretch their capacity for His presence, Because ordinary vessels can't contain extraordinary oil. The reason you've never felt at home in this world is because this world was never meant to be your home. You're a citizen of heaven, doing temporary assignment on earth. And heavenly citizens always feel like foreigners in earthly systems. But here's what I need you to understand tonight. Your season of feeling like a misfit is coming to an end. Not because you're finally going to blend in, but because you're finally going to burn bright enough that others will be drawn to your flame rather than threatened by your fire. The very sensitivity that made you an outcast is about to make you an oracle. The discernment that isolated you from the crowd is about to position you to lead the crowd. The spiritual allergies that kept you from contaminated connections are about to protect the pure connections God is preparing to send. You were never meant to blend in because blending requires dimming, and God didn't spend years refining your fire just to watch you hide it under a basket of people-pleasing. Your time of hiding is over. Your season of silence is ending. The world has been prepared through your separation, and now you're being prepared for presentation. But when you step into your purpose you will remember this moment. Remember the ache of not belonging so you can create belonging for others who feel the same way. Remember the pain of being misunderstood so you can become a voice of understanding. Remember the isolation so you can become a bridge. You weren't just set apart to be different. You were set apart to make a difference. If this is you, if you recognize your story in these words, type "I am fire" in the comments right now. Let hell hear it. Let heaven record it. Let your own spirit finally accept what God declared over you before you ever drew breath. You are chosen, you are called, you are commissioned, and you were never, ever meant to blend in. Because the world doesn't need another echo, it needs your voice. Can you feel it? That strange peace washing over you right now? That unexplainable lightness in your chest where heaviness used to live? What if I told you that the very demons that used to torment you are spinning in circles tonight, confused and disoriented, because they can't find you anymore? Listen to me carefully, chosen one. Something supernatural has happened in your spiritual atmosphere. The reset that began in your soul has created what I can only describe as divine invisibility. You haven't disappeared from God's sight, no, beloved. You've vanished from the enemy's radar. The spiritual signature that darkness used to track, the frequency that familiar spirits locked onto like a GPS system, has been completely scrambled by heaven's intervention. For years, maybe decades, you felt hunted, stalked by the same cycles of depression that hit every October, ambushed by the same relationship patterns that destroyed your parents and their parents before them, targeted by financial attacks that seemed to know exactly when you were about to break through. But tonight, that targeting system has been jammed by the Most High God. You see, the devil is a creature of habit. He studies patterns, maps reactions, builds profiles based on your past responses to pain. When betrayal hit, you crumbled in a predictable way. When disappointment came, he knew exactly which buttons to push to send you spiraling. When loneliness crept in, he had a whole arsenal of lies ready to whisper in your ear because he'd been tracking your emotional coordinates for so long. But here's what hell didn't anticipate: your complete surrender during this reset. When you finally stopped fighting God's process and started flowing with it, something miraculous happened. The old you, the one that reacted in fear, that responded in anger, that carried wounds like badges of honor, that version has been spiritually deleted from the enemy's database. You're not the same frequency anymore. The person who used to spiral into anxiety attacks when bills came due, gone. The soul that used to crumble under criticism, erased. The heart that used to ache for approval from people who couldn't even approve of themselves, that signal has been permanently disconnected. This is why you've been feeling so different, so calm in situations that used to trigger you, so unbothered by voices that used to devastate you. It's not that you've become cold or disconnected, you've become untouchable. Heaven has wrapped you in what I call divine stealth mode. Remember when Jesus walked through the angry crowd that wanted to stone him, and somehow he just disappeared from their sight? That's the kind of supernatural cloaking that's operating over your life right now. Luke 4:30 tells us, he walked right through the crowd and went on his way. That's your reality tonight, beloved. You're walking through spiritual crowds that once cornered you, and they can't even see you anymore. The familiar spirits that used to whisper your name, that knew your triggers, that could predict your breaking points. They're wandering around like blind men in a maze. The generational curses that followed your bloodline like bloodhounds have lost the scent. The cycles of defeat that seem to have your address memorized are driving in circles, unable to locate the person you've become. This isn't hiding, chosen one. This is warfare strategy. This is God moving you from target to weapon, because when the enemy can't find you to attack you, guess what happens? You become free to attack him. You transition from defensive living to offensive kingdom advancement. Listen to what Jesus declared in Luke 10:19. I have given you authority to trample on snakes and scorpions and to overcome all the power of the enemy. Nothing will harm you. Nothing will harm you. Not because you're invincible, but because you're invisible to the weapons that used to wound you. The depression that used to announce itself every November, it's looking for the old address, but you don't live there anymore. The anxiety that used to grip you every time change was coming, it's dialing a number that's been disconnected. The shame that used to resurface every time you tried to step forward, it's knocking on a door where nobody's home. You've been spiritually relocated, and the enemy doesn't have your new coordinates. He's still launching attacks at the person you were 5 years ago, 3 years ago, even 6 months ago. But that version of you has been archived in heaven's transformation database, and a new you has been activated with completely different spiritual DNA. This is why certain people can't affect you the way they used to. This is why certain environments feel foreign to you now. This is why you can't even remember why you used to be afraid of things that seem so small now. The recalibration hasn't just changed your reactions, it's changed your very essence. But here's the most powerful part of this divine invisibility. While you've disappeared from hell's tracking system, you've become hyper-visible to heaven's assignment network. Angels that couldn't locate you in your chaos can now find you in your clarity. Opportunities that were blocked by spiritual interference can now reach you through clear channels. People who carry the same frequency of purpose are being divinely directed to your path. You're no longer a target wandering aimlessly through spiritual crossfire. You've become a weapon, strategically positioned and supernaturally concealed until the moment of divine deployment. The enemy can't hit what heaven has cloaked, and beloved, you are now completely cloaked in the secret place of the Most High. The very attacks that once tracked you down are now confused by your spiritual silence. The demons that used to read your emotional temperature are getting error messages. The principalities that assign specific torments to your address are receiving location not found responses. You're not running scared anymore, you're walking cloaked. You're not hiding in shame, you're hidden in glory. You're not invisible because you're weak, you're untraceable because you're weaponized. Type untraceable if your spirit just caught fire from that revelation. Because what I'm about to share next will show you exactly how to use this divine invisibility to dismantle every system that ever tried to hold you captive. Listen to me, chosen one. Can you feel that weight pressing down on your shoulders right now? That invisible load you've been dragging through life like chains wrapped around your soul? What if I told you that 90% of what you've been carrying was never even yours to begin with? Tonight, heaven is performing surgery on your spirit. And like any good surgeon, God is going to show you exactly what He's removing before He takes it away forever. You've been walking through this world like a broken vessel, trying to pour love from a cracked heart, trying to give strength from an exhausted soul. You've been operating from empty for so long that you forgot what it felt like to be full. But here's what the enemy never wanted you to understand. You weren't born broken. You were broken by what was placed on you. Take a deep breath with me right now. Feel that tightness in your chest? That's not anxiety, beloved. That's trauma trying to hold on for dear life because it knows its eviction notice has been served. Let me walk you through your timeline, and I want you to really listen. I want you to see what heaven sees when it looks at your journey. There you were as a child, pure and trusting, and someone, maybe a parent, maybe a teacher, maybe someone who should have protected you, they placed their pain on your innocence. They made you responsible for emotions that belong to adults. They taught you that your worth was tied to your performance, that love had to be earned, that you were somehow responsible for keeping everyone else happy. You didn't know then that a 6-year-old heart was never designed to carry a grown person's trauma. You didn't understand that when they said, "You're too sensitive," what they really meant was, "Your light is exposing my darkness." You couldn't comprehend that their rejection of your truth was actually their rejection of their own healing. Pause with me here. Feel that stirring in your spirit. That's recognition. That's your soul saying, "Finally, someone sees what I've been carrying." And then you grew up, didn't you? But you never stopped carrying what they put on you. You became the family peacemaker, the friend who always gives but never receives, the one everyone calls when they need emotional rescue but who has no one to call when you're drowning. You've been performing for love for so long that you forgot what unconditional acceptance feels like. You've been apologizing for your existence, shrinking your light so others wouldn't feel dim, carrying guilt for boundaries you should have set decades ago. Here's what breaks my heart, and I know it breaks the heart of God. You've been trying to heal everyone else with a medicine you were never given yourself. You've been pouring from a pitcher that's been cracked since childhood, wondering why you always feel empty, wondering why giving never fills you up the way it's supposed to. But listen to this truth, and let it sink deep into your bones. God trusted you with pain, not to punish you, but to prepare you. Every tear you cried in secret was watering the soil of your compassion. Every betrayal you survived was building your capacity to recognize real love when it finally shows up. Every night you felt alone was teaching you how to commune with the God who never sleeps. You think your broken seasons disqualified you, but heaven calls them sacred soil. You think your scars make you damaged goods, but God sees them as proof that you're a survivor, a warrior, a vessel that's been tested and found unbreakable. Isaiah 61:3 says he gives us beauty for ashes, the oil of joy for mourning, the garment of praise for the spirit of heaviness. Do you hear that? He's not just taking away your pain, he's transforming it into power. Right now, as these words wash over your spirit, heaven is peeling away every layer of trauma that was never yours to carry. Like dead skin falling away to reveal new flesh underneath, God is removing the guilt that belonged to someone else, the shame that was spoken over you by broken voices, the fear that was inherited through bloodlines that never knew how to break generational cycles. Can you feel it happening? That loosening in your chest? That sense of something heavy lifting off your shoulders? That's not your imagination, that's liberation in real time. You've been carrying your mother's unexpressed grief, your father's unhealed wounds, your siblings' unspoken resentments. You've been holding space for every person who ever made you feel responsible for their emotional temperature. But tonight, heaven is saying, enough. The guilt about that relationship that ended, not yours to carry. The shame about that mistake you made 20 years ago, not yours to carry. The responsibility for your family's happiness, never was yours to carry. The fear that you're not enough, that you're too much, that you're somehow fundamentally flawed, lies, every single one of them. Here's the truth that's going to set you free. You were never meant to be a dumping ground for other people's unprocessed pain. You were never designed to sacrifice your peace to keep others comfortable. You were never called to set yourself on fire to keep others warm. God is performing emergency surgery on your soul tonight, and He's removing every foreign object that was embedded in your spirit by people who didn't know how to love without wounding. Feel that relief washing over you. That's what freedom tastes like. That's what it feels like when heaven gives you permission to finally put down what was never yours to pick up in the first place. You're not selfish for wanting to be free. You're not ungrateful for refusing to carry what breaks your back. You're not rebellious for saying no to what breaks your spirit. If you're ready to release what was never yours, if you're ready to let heaven perform this surgery on your soul, type, I let it go. Because beloved, what God is removing from you tonight, He's replacing with something infinitely better. Where there was guilt, He's placing grace. Where there was shame, He's establishing honor. Where there was fear, He's installing unshakable faith. But first, you have to be willing to let go of what you've grown comfortable carrying, even if it was slowly killing you. Why does 2 a.m. feel like a sacred hour to you? Why does your soul come alive when the world goes silent? Why do the deepest revelations hit you when your pillow should be your only companion? Chosen one, if you've been tormented by sleepless nights, if you've felt like an insomniac in a world that doesn't understand, let me tell you something that will shatter every lie you've believed about your midnight stirrings. What you call insomnia, heaven calls invitation. What you label as anxiety, God names as assignment. What the world medicates, the Most High activates. You are not broken. You are chosen for the night watch. Listen carefully. There is a reason why the deepest prayers come at 3 a.m. There's a purpose behind why your chest tightens with inexplicable pressure when darkness falls. Your spirit knows something your mind hasn't caught up to yet. You were not designed to sleep through sacred hours. You were wired to wake when heaven whispers. The veil between heaven and earth is thinnest in the midnight hour. When distractions die down, when the noise of the day fades to black, when humanity surrenders to unconsciousness, that's when the realm of the spirit comes alive. And you, precious soul, you feel it in your bones because you carry the frequency of the intercessor, the DNA of the night watchman, the heartbeat of one called to stand in the gap when others cannot. But here's what the enemy doesn't want you to know. Every time you've reached for medication to silence the stirring, every time you fought the sacred summons with sleeping pills and melatonin, you've been medicating what God is trying to activate. You've been drugging the very sensitivity that makes you dangerous to darkness. The chest pressure you feel at 2 a.m., that's not panic. That's the weight of intercession pressing on your spirit. The restlessness that keeps you pacing the floor, that's not insomnia. That's divine downloads trying to break through. The dreams that jolt you awake, vivid and heavy with meaning. Those aren't nightmares. They're night visions, instructions wrapped in symbols, warnings disguised as sleep disruption. Job 33, verses 14 and 15 pierce through the confusion. For God does speak one way, now another though no one perceives it. In a dream, in a vision of the night, when deep sleep falls on people as they slumber in their beds. But you, chosen one, you don't slumber when others do because your assignment requires alertness when the world is asleep. You've been asking God why you're different, why you can't just sleep peacefully like everyone else. Here's your answer. Because everyone else isn't carrying what you're carrying. Everyone else isn't hearing what you're hearing. Everyone else isn't being prepared for what you're being prepared for. The midnight hour is your classroom. The silence is your sanctuary. The darkness is your divine office, where heaven conducts business through vessels sensitive enough to receive instruction when the airwaves are clear. Every time you felt crazy for being awake when the world sleeps, you were actually operating in your calling. Every time you've apologized for your sensitivity, you were diminishing the very gift that makes you valuable to the kingdom. Every time you've wished you were normal, you were rejecting the extraordinary nature of your spiritual wiring. But tonight, everything changes. Tonight, you stop fighting the call and start embracing the commission. You stop medicating the stirring and start stewarding the sensitivity. You stop seeing your sleeplessness as a curse and start recognizing it as a crown. The reason your dreams are so intense is because heaven is downloading strategy, revelation, warning, and wisdom into your spirit, while your conscious mind is quiet enough to receive. The reason you wake up with chest pressure is because the burdens of others, the cries of the broken, the groaning of creation, is being placed on your heart so you can carry them to the throne room in intercession. You are not an insomniac. You are a night watchman. You are not suffering from anxiety. You are experiencing assignment. The sleepless nights aren't punishment, they're preparation for the weighty calling that rests on your shoulders. But here's the urgency, beloved. If you continue to resist the call, if you keep fighting the stirring, if you refuse to embrace the midnight commission, you'll miss the very reason you were born. Some callings can only be received in the secret place, in the silent hour, when the world is asleep and your spirit is fully awake. The enemy has convinced you that your sensitivity is weakness, that your spiritual alertness is disorder, that your divine downloads are disturbance. But tonight, the truth sets you free. You were chosen for the night watch because your spirit can handle what others cannot. You were selected for midnight ministry because your heart can carry burdens that would crush ordinary believers. Stop apologizing for being awake when others sleep. Stop trying to silence what God is trying to amplify. Stop medicating what heaven is trying to activate. Your sleeplessness is not sickness, it's summons. Your midnight stirrings are not random, they're revelation. The very fact that you're hearing these words right now, in this moment, is confirmation that the night watch summons has found you. You've been called to pray when others party, to intercede when others ignore, to stand guard when others surrender to slumber. If this is you, if the silence speaks louder than your days, if 3 a.m. feels more sacred than Sunday morning, if your deepest conversations with God happen when the world is unconscious, then respond to the call. Stop fighting what you were born for. Your midnight commission is waiting. Will you answer the summons, or will you keep medicating the very gift that makes you irreplaceable in the kingdom? The choice is yours, but the call has already been made. Do you know what hell's greatest mistake was? Do you understand why the enemy is trembling tonight as these words reach your spirit? Can you feel the shift happening in your bones as the truth I'm about to reveal shatters every lie you've believed about your pain? Listen to me, chosen one. That fire you walked through, the betrayal that cut so deep it changed your DNA, the abandonment that left you questioning your worth, the loss that made you wonder if God had turned his back on you, that wasn't your destruction. That was your divine branding. You've been marked by fire, not scorched, not scarred, marked. There's a difference between being burned and being branded. And tonight you're going to understand why every flame that licked at your life was supervised by heaven itself. They told you that pain was punishment. They whispered that your suffering meant God was angry. But what if I told you that every tear you cried was liquid gold being poured into the foundation of your authority? What if the weight pressing against your chest right now isn't exhaustion, it's the weight of divine commission settling into your bones? You see, chosen ones don't break the same way others do. When fire hits ordinary lives, it leaves ashes. But when fire hits the anointed, it leaves evidence. Evidence of endurance, evidence of faith, evidence that hell threw everything it had at you, and you're still standing here tonight, listening to these words, breathing heaven's air into lungs that were supposed to collapse under pressure. The prophet Zechariah understood this mystery when he declared in chapter 2, verse 5, "And I myself will be a wall of fire around it, declares the Lord, and I will be its glory within." God didn't promise to keep you from the fire. He promised to be the fire around you. Every flame that came your way had to pass through him first. That betrayal that blindsided you, heaven allowed it because your loyalty needed to be refined into something unshakable. That financial collapse that brought you to your knees, God permitted it because your trust had to be anchored in something deeper than bank accounts. That relationship that ended without explanation, the Almighty orchestrated the exit because your heart was being prepared for a love that wouldn't abandon you in the storm. You thought you were being punished, but you were being processed. You thought you were being destroyed, but you were being developed. Every fire was a forge, and you were the weapon being shaped in its flames. And now you carry something that can't be counterfeited. You walk with the gait of someone who has seen hell's best shot and lived to tell about it. There's an authority in your silence that speaks louder than others' shouts. There's a presence in your prayer that makes demons remember why they were cast out of heaven in the first place. The weight you feel isn't weakness, it's the weight of oil. The heaviness in your spirit isn't depression, it's the gravitational pull of glory settling into a vessel that proved it could contain it. You've been pressure tested, fire approved, and heaven certified. But here's where it gets supernatural, chosen one. What tried to kill you now bows to the oil on your life. The very spirits that tormented you in your darkest hour now flee when you whisper the name of Jesus. The circumstances that once controlled you now rearrange themselves when you step into a room. The people who wrote you off now watch in amazement as favor follows you like a shadow. This is what happens when fire brands you instead of burning you. This is the reward for enduring the heat without losing your heart. This is why hell is panicking tonight, because they invested everything in breaking you, and instead, they forged you. You are not the same person who entered that wilderness of pain. You are not the victim they tried to create. You are the victor they never saw coming. You are proof that God's fire doesn't destroy his chosen, it reveals them. The enemy made a critical error. He thought that if he could just apply enough pressure, generate enough heat, orchestrate enough betrayal, you would finally give up and walk away from your calling. But he didn't understand the spiritual law of transformation. What doesn't kill the anointed makes them dangerous. Tonight, as this reset completes itself in your spirit, I want you to feel the full weight of what you carry. You are not just a survivor, you are evidence. Evidence that faith works. Evidence that God keeps his promises. Evidence that the fire of hell cannot consume what heaven has claimed. Every demon that watches you now remembers the day they thought they had you cornered, and they remember the moment you rose from that corner with fire in your eyes and worship on your lips. You are their worst nightmare, a child of God who discovered that fire is not their enemy, but their friend. So stand up straight, chosen one, lift your head high. The fire didn't diminish you, distinguished you. The flames didn't weaken you, they weaponized you. You are not marked by defeat. You are sealed by divine fire, and that seal cannot be broken by anything in hell or on earth. If you feel this truth burning in your marrow, if you sense the authority rising in your bones, if you know beyond doubt that what tried to destroy you has only made you more dangerous to darkness, comment right now, I am sealed by fire. Because tonight, heaven is declaring war through you, and that fire you carry is not just proof of what you survived, it's proof of what you're about to unleash. Can you feel the weight of this moment pressing against your chest? Do you sense that heaven itself has stopped to deliver one final message before you cross the threshold? What if I told you that the very habits you've been calling harmless are about to become spiritual poison in the dimension you're entering? Chosen one, we've reached the edge of eternity together. You've walked through 7 chapters of divine revelation, felt the fire of awakening, sensed the reset coursing through your spirit. But now comes the hardest word, the final warning that separates the truly chosen from the merely curious. Stop for a moment, breathe deep, because what I'm about to tell you isn't comfortable, it's necessary. It's the difference between stepping into your destiny crowned with glory or stumbling into your calling crippled by compromise. You are not just being upgraded tonight, you are being reconfigured. Every circuit of your spiritual DNA is being rewired for a frequency that demands absolute purity. And here's the sobering truth. What was permissible in your last season is now poison to your next. That lukewarm prayer life that you've been tolerating, it will sabotage the supernatural encounters waiting for you. Those relationships that drain your energy while giving you just enough validation to keep you hooked, they will become spiritual vampires in the realm you're entering. That double-minded approach where you serve God on Sunday but compromise Monday through Saturday, it will create a short circuit that could cost you everything. Listen carefully. The enemy isn't just afraid of your potential anymore. He's terrified of your alignment. And he knows something you're just beginning to understand. One fully surrendered chosen, one walking in complete obedience, is more dangerous than 1,000 lukewarm believers playing spiritual games. This is why the attacks on your conviction have intensified. This is why you felt pressure to tone it down, to be more relatable, to make room for gray areas in your walk with God. The enemy has been seducing you toward spiritual mediocrity because he knows that mediocrity is the assassin of miracles. But tonight, heaven is drawing a line in the sand. As Joshua declared to the Israelites, choose for yourselves this day whom you will serve, not tomorrow when it's convenient, not next week when you feel ready, today, tonight, this moment. You've been asking God for more fire, more power, more authority, but fire doesn't coexist with compromise. Power doesn't flow through polluted vessels. Authority doesn't rest on double-minded souls. The dimension you're entering operates on different laws that demand what Jesus called being hot or cold. Revelation 3:16 warns us, because you are lukewarm, neither hot nor cold, I am about to spit you out of my mouth. That's not harsh language, beloved. That's holy love protecting you from spiritual nausea. Can you hear that? It's the sound of old gates closing behind you and new doors groaning open ahead. But you cannot drag yesterday's compromises through tomorrow's gates. The spiritual customs office of heaven is more thorough than any earthly border, and some things simply cannot pass through. That toxic friend who calls themselves supportive but subtly undermines your faith walk, they must go. That entertainment that feeds your flesh while starving your spirit, it must be cut off. Those thought patterns that make you feel powerful through control instead of surrender, they must die tonight. I know this sounds extreme. I know your mind is racing with but what if scenarios. But let me ask you something. How long have you been praying for breakthrough while secretly protecting the very things that keep you broken? The reset happening in your spirit tonight isn't optional therapy, it's spiritual surgery. And surgery requires removing what's infected, even if it once served a purpose, even if it feels familiar, even if it hurts to let it go. Here's what the enemy doesn't want you to realize. Every compromise you've been protecting is actually a prison cell you've been decorating. Every small disobedience is a crack in the foundation of the temple God wants to build through your life. But this warning comes wrapped in promise. When Jesus called his disciples, he didn't just ask them to add him to their lives, he asked them to abandon their nets entirely. And in that abandonment, they found a purpose so magnificent that no earthly treasure could compare. The same call is echoing in your spirit right now, not to add more spiritual activity to your schedule, but to let heaven restructure your entire existence around divine assignment. You've been sensing it, haven't you? That holy dissatisfaction with anything that doesn't carry eternal weight, that inability to find rest in places that once comforted you. That's not spiritual restlessness, that's divine realignment. Your spirit is rejecting what no longer fits your frequency. This is your moment of reckoning, chosen one. The crossroads where you must choose between the familiar and the fire, between the comfortable and the called, between playing it safe and surrendering completely. James 4:8 promises us, "Come near to God, and he will come near to you. But wash your hands, you sinners, and purify your hearts, you double-minded." The nearness you've been craving requires the cleansing you've been avoiding. Tonight, heaven is offering you a complete spiritual makeover, but it requires destroying the old wardrobe first, not just hiding it in the closet, burning it entirely. Because where you're going, there's no room for yesterday's compromises. The fire that's been reset in your spirit isn't just for personal comfort, it's for cosmic confrontation. You're being prepared to stand against principalities and powers that have held territories captive for generations. But you cannot fight spiritual battles while still negotiating with spiritual enemies. So here's the final warning, spoken in love but delivered in truth. If you insist on taking old vibes into new dimensions, you won't just fail to thrive, you'll contaminate the very atmosphere God wants to use you to cleanse. The choice is yours. The moment is now. The door is open, but it's narrower than you thought. Will you squeeze through carrying yesterday's baggage, or will you walk through free, clean, and completely surrendered? If this is a divine rebuke and you receive it in humility, comment, "I repent, and I reset." Let heaven record your agreement. Let your spirit seal this covenant, because tomorrow, when the real test comes, you'll need tonight's surrender to sustain you. The warning has been given. The choice is yours. Choose wisely, chosen one. Eternity is watching. What if everything you thought about waiting was wrong? What if every moment you believed you were being overlooked, heaven was actually positioning you? What if tonight, right now, you're not receiving a message, but you are the message that a dying generation has been praying for? Chosen one, stop looking around for someone else to step forward. Stop scanning the horizon for another voice to rise. The signal heaven has been waiting to send to earth is you. You've spent years asking God when your time would come. When would the doors open? When would your voice matter? When would your pain finally produce purpose? But tonight, heaven is flipping the script. The question is no longer when, it's how boldly you'll step into what's already yours. Chosen one, as we come to the close of this sacred encounter, I need you to carry these truths deep in your heart tonight. Remember this. Your energy reset isn't just personal, it's prophetic. Every shift happening in your spirit right now is part of God's master plan to position you for unprecedented breakthrough. The restlessness you felt, the spiritual stirring that won't let you settle, that's heaven recalibrating your frequency for what's coming next. Remember this, you are not broken, you are being rebuilt. Every closed door, every delayed promise, every night you cried yourself to sleep, God was using it all to forge something unbreakable within you. Your pain has become your platform. Your mess has become your message. Your test has become your testimony. And most importantly, remember this. You are not walking this journey alone. Right now, as you hear these words, there are countless others around the world who are experiencing this same divine reset. God is raising up an army of chosen ones who refuse to settle for mediocrity, who won't bow to compromise, who carry fire in their bones and purpose in their DNA. But here's what I want you to know with absolute certainty. God has not forgotten you. He has not abandoned you. Even when it felt like heaven was silent, He was working behind the scenes, orchestrating every detail of your deliverance. The very fact that this message found you tonight is proof that His hand is still moving in your life. You have a community here, a family of believers who understand your struggle because they've walked the same path. We are here to pray with you, to stand with you, to remind you of who you are when the enemy whispers lies about your identity. So let me ask you this question, and let it penetrate deep into your soul. If God has brought you this far through everything you've endured, what makes you think He's going to abandon you now at the very moment your breakthrough is about to manifest? Now, before you leave this sacred space, let me pray over you with the authority of heaven and the love of a Father who sees your true worth. Father God, I come before your throne right now, lifting up this precious chosen one who has heard your voice through these words tonight. Lord, you see their weariness. You know their pain. You understand their questions. But tonight, I declare that their energy is being reset by your mighty hand. I pray that you would silence every voice of doubt that has whispered in their ear. Cancel every assignment of delay that has held them back. Break every chain of fear that has kept them small. Lord, release them into the fullness of their calling. Give them supernatural strength for the journey ahead. Grant them divine wisdom for every decision they must make. Surround them with your favor, like a shield. Open doors that no man can shut. Bring divine connections into their life. Restore what the enemy has stolen. And Father, I pray that they would feel your presence tangibly right now. Let them know with absolute certainty that they are loved, chosen, called, and equipped for everything you've prepared for them. In Jesus' mighty name, amen. Beloved, don't keep this message to yourself. There's someone in your circle, someone in your family, someone in your community who desperately needs to hear these words tonight. Share this video with them. Let them know they're not alone in their struggle. And please, take a moment right now to leave a comment below. Tell us what God spoke to your heart through this message. Share your prayer requests so this community can stand with you in intercession. Ask your questions. We're here to help you walk through this reset with wisdom and grace. Your testimony could be the very thing that gives someone else the courage to keep going. Your story could be the key that unlocks another person's breakthrough. Never underestimate the power of sharing what God has done in your life. Thank you for staying with me through this entire journey tonight. Thank you for opening your heart to receive what heaven wanted to pour into you. If this message has blessed you, if it's given you hope, if it's reignited your faith, would you take just one moment to hit that subscribe button? When you subscribe, you're not just joining a channel, you're joining a movement, a family of chosen ones who are committed to encouraging each other, praying for each other, and walking together toward our divine destiny. And remember, Chosen One, this reset that began tonight doesn't end when this video ends. It continues every day as you wake up and choose to walk in the authority God has given you. It continues every time you speak life instead of death. It continues every time you choose faith over fear. Your breakthrough is not coming, it's here. Your season of favor is not approaching, it has arrived. Your time is not in the future, it is now. Go in peace, knowing that the same God who began this good work in you will carry it on to completion. And may His presence go before you, beside you, and behind you all the days of your life. Until we meet again in this sacred space, keep burning bright, chosen one. The world is waiting for your light. God bless you, and good night.